Yeah, just call it to order.
I'd like to call the study session with the joint Water Board and Sanitary Board to order. Roll call.
Jim Zarnik.
Present.
John Kennedy is absent. Kim Kroll.
Present.
John Schaefer.
Present.
Patricia Sims-Surmerchek is absent. Ken Gambala.
Yes.
Joan McInerney.
Present.
Joe Wizawati.
Present.
Wayne Pondikas.
Present.
Okay, reports and correspondence. First group, 93rd Avenue, US 41 project and bid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, board members. My name is Evan Lavalette. I'm with First Group Engineering. We were the designers for the West 93rd Intersection Improvement Project at US 41. Joe invited me here this evening to explain the scope of our project. A little bit about it. We have, because of the roadway funding of this project, we actually split construction into two phases. So the first phase that went out to bid and is currently awaiting award is the section right here of 93rd Avenue, about approximately 1,000 foot west of the intersection of 41 to 1,000 foot east of the intersection of US 41, and then 300 foot of Kyleman Street. And then the second part of our project is going to be the remainder of Kyleman from School to approximate the limits of phase one. And then here's a little aerial view of what our current project limits are. So during project development through the utility coordination process, I was working with Bob Davis, and we needed to relocate a portion of the water main, mostly on the west side of the project. Oh, sorry, Jason, back up for me. Mostly on the west side of the project, as we're lowering the grade of the road a little bit. And then Bob expressed his, the town's want to replace the 12-inch water main throughout our entire limits. So I worked with Bob to get that into our current plan set. As I mentioned, there's going to be a second phase of the project. Nope, didn't work. Go ahead, Jason, sorry. Thank you. And then in order to maintain existing water services, the first 3 houses on the west side of Kyleman and the first 4 houses on the east side of Kyleman, they're going to be hooked up to the new water main of phase 1, but we are also going to be maintaining the existing connection along Kyleman, and that'll also ensure everybody along Kyleman Street still has water services until we come back with our second phase of the project, approximately in about 2024 summertime, depending on funding applications. In front of you now is our phase 1 costs. These are the costs to the project directly related to our water main. I have this split up in 2 sections. I have a yellow section and a blue section. So the blue items, those are the water main direct costs. All your water main, your various sizes needed for this project, curb stops, corp stops, new water services to the right-of-way for everybody within our limits. And then there is a yellow section. The scope of our project only involves about half of the project being reconstructed or widened. So there's a patching cost associated with mostly the water main east of US 41 that it's going to be under patching and not under any reconstruction. So the costs associated with that are items you may not typically see with the water main. The rest of the project, however, it's underneath the reconstruction or widening in our project. So we're not pinning any of that pavement cost or any of the subgrade treatment on the water portion of this project. So we've separated that out enough that there's more patching and stuff included in this project, but we have set that aside so that you guys know the direct costs associated to the water main replacement on this project. So as you can see, the current low bidder at opening and after our review of the bid tabs is FH Passion. However, it's got an asterisk there as the contract is pending award. not just from the funding of the water main, but some other things that were going on with the project. So we have not yet awarded this project, but you can see for a total of $889,585.71 is where the low bidders cost to the water replacement is coming in at this one. And in regards to the water board's cost, this is actually the low bid for the water main replacement as well. It did happen to luck out that the low bidder also was the low bidder in the case of this extra work. So that is a good thing for this water board cost. And then as far as the engineer's estimate, you can see we were a little bit high there. Last year, the costs were escalated so much due to material issues and delays and stuff like that. We were a little heavy-handed on our contingencies. So luckily, we were much under our estimates. You can go on the next page, please. And just in summary, the phase one is going to be built this year. That's the full project limits that you've seen highlighted in the red outline. The total cost that it's going to be for the replacement of 12-inch line throughout the entire project limits, as well as 1-inch water service lines to every resident and the few businesses that are within our limits. And then phase two, as I mentioned, we're going to assume a 2024 cost of construction, and using the current bid tabulations, we have roughly 550 feet of additional water main that'll need replacement on Kyleman at that time, and we're assuming right now about a $200,000 to finish that work off. And I would love to answer any, I just prepared a real quick summary for you, for everybody. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them at this time.
Is this water main under the pavement?
Yes, most of the way under the pavement, yes.
And the service taps, it says phase two, are they going to be tapped in under the road?
Yes.
You have to go back and,
So for the small portion of Kyleman that we're doing during phase one, we're doing about 300 foot of Kyleman. We're going to run the new main on the west side of the road, tie in approximately 7 residences in that first 300 foot, and then leave the existing line in place, at which point we'll come back during phase two, continue on where we left off the new main, and then tap everybody into that. So by the end of whenever phase two happens, everybody through our 93rd limits and Kyleman down to School Street will be hooked up to the new water main.
So what's the justification for replacing the 12-inch? Is it an old main? Lots of breaks on it?
Robinson has currently made us aware that the main is previously installed before 1972, likely even 10 or 20 years before that. When I approached Bob Davis with the idea that we needed to relocate the western portion of the water main, he actually said that's the one that breaks less, and they're having many breaks in this section of it right out here in front of Town Hall. That's why he expressed the want to, let's go ahead and replace it since we're here. Why resurface and do on, as I said, there's a lot of places that we were able to save costs from patching the whole job because we are reconstructing and widening so much. So really the most of the patching costs you're seeing is because of the failing water mains out, and you can see them directly in the roadway, where exactly where Bob's been at the last few years and his team.
it's all ductile iron, and we've found now we've had to replace most of the ductile iron in an ongoing process in this town.
Sure.
Because of problems, it's breakage.
So basically, they were letting us know that basically every freeze-thaw process, they would fix this joint, and then 20 feet down the road, the next joint would pop. So they were constantly coming back out and always repairing it.
Okay.
From Kyleman to the police station, it's probably been about 6 to 7 water main breaks.
Yeah, I mean, the patches are all out there. You can clearly see them. They're all right there. It's right over the water main.
Gotcha.
Did you have a bidders list and a bid tabulation?
Yes, that has been passed on to the town manager's office. As far as the bid tabulations go, specifically in regards to the water main, the blue items that I had highlighted, it was the same subcontractor by all 3 bidders. So the unit pricing for the blue items, that was the same subcontractor for all the primes. So that cost wouldn't change much. As I mentioned, the yellow items, it does benefit the water board substantially because Passion was also the low bidder in regards to those yellow items. If a different contractor was awarded, this cost would increase as those yellow item bid prices, those would increase.
So that there was only
There was,
Passion's using a subcontractor for all the blue items, correct? correct?
Yes.
And that was the same contractor that submitted bids on all the other ones?
I should say that I can only assume that based on all three contractors during review had the exact same unit prices. So as you can see, it was across the board, that 150 down to the 4,500, it was the exact same unit prices for all three bidders. So I mean, I am making an assumption there that it was the same subcontractor by all three primes, but the unit prices are the same. So I can make that statement, that the blue items would cost the same between all three primes. However, the yellow prices would change based on the prime.
And who are the other, who else bid on this?
Milestone and Reith Riley.
And it was an advertised bid?
Yes.
Who's the subcontractor?
We believe it's Gatlin.
Okay. And then I know the ship has sailed, but no reason to upsize the water main.
That was a decision that we left on the town. The upsizing of it wasn't seen by too many through any, I worked with Bob on this very closely. The town manager's office didn't see a need to upsize it. So no, at this time, we are just replacing a 12-inch with a 12-inch line.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no recommendation by staff, or I don't even think engineering weighed in on it, to be honest with you. I don't know if Haas had any prior input on that. Wayne, was there any discussion about upsizing the main?
No, they wanted to replace it.
Yeah, I think that was the critical issue. This is like a once in a generational
Yes.
time to replace that main under 41. So there's an existing, I believe it's an 18-inch sleeve that runs under 41. So we're going to be using that same.
Yeah, so there was a project in 2009 that kind of set this up. INDOT came through and did some widening at that time. And then they put a sleeve underneath US 41 so that we can attach on both sides of it, so that during this project, we don't have to open cut on US 41, which would just be a nightmare to get across 41 in traffic. So that's about one of the only places where we're not replacing the main, because that is relatively new, this sleeve with the pipe through it. But yeah, that was set up in these 2009 plans that we found.
Yeah, and it's only 18-inch. If it were 24 or something like that, there would be discussions to upsizing it, but it didn't make sense to go to a 12 and then go to an 18 or 16-inch.
Okay. That's good foresight.
Yeah.
Just out of looking at the bid here, there's, as far as traffic control and things like that, I don't see that any line items on there for that.
So this is- That was kind of assumed in the cost of the overall road project, and we weren't putting that any on the water board in particular. This was in development through the utility coordination process. So we kind of handled this as, hey, Bob, I did help develop those plans quite a bit through the various programs the town has, as well as we did some potholing all summer to kind of figure out what's existing out there. We put this together in mind that we just are looking for the costs directly associated to the water main, as we are already going to be here with a project. So while some of our lump sum items may have increased due to some of these items, it was already assumed in the cost of the road project. So we do have lump sum items as maintenance of traffic, construction engineering, clearing the right-of-way, items like that, but none of that cost is being associated to this water main work.
And you don't anticipate any change orders coming across on this or anything like that? And is there any contingency built into this?
There is no contingencies built into these current pricing, though there are contingencies within the calculated quantities. So we do have incidentals, in the event of,
But that's not,
at 41, for example. I'm sorry.
and that's not on this contract, that's on the road contract?
No, so all of the items associated to this water main are shown in front of you now.
So there's contingencies or not contingencies built into this?
There are no contingencies in this price, though we have quantified items to incur incidentals if needed.
So you overestimated the quantity.
Overestimated some of the quantities, yes. As far as regards to change orders, we made it very clear up front to Bob Davis of the utilities that we are not water main designers, that we did help them get the sizing down, getting everybody water service lines, counting curb stops and curb stops, making sure all the residents did get new service valves. I believe this design should be adequate. I don't see any issues with it. We did really good research on this one. The town has some pretty good systems set in line so we can know our existing conditions and what we're tying into. Bob and his team, they did a bunch of potholing wherever we had unknowns, especially at this US 41 sleeve. So I do not believe we should incur any more change orders associated to the work needed to complete the project. We've quantified everything pretty good. And the plans in front of you kind of show the water line plans, what's needed, the Ts, the bends. Those have all been individually quantified with specifications to cover our tie-in points at each of the side streets.
Is First Group doing the construction administration?
Yes, we are.
And you'll have an inspector out there?
Yes, full-time.
So my key question is, how is this being paid for? Was this,
And that is why Joe has invited us here today. We have been providing estimates since the start of this development of the project. Once I provided some of those early on estimates, that 1.1 number specifically, when it was a fuller project, it may have been a little higher at that time. We presented it to Bob. He was comfortable with where it was at, and that's where we were given the go-ahead to keep moving forward with this. But I do not believe there has been a designated funding source for this particular work.
Right. It would probably be utilizing the water utility reserve that's there in order to accommodate that. With that said, that's probably going to put some, strain on the water utility fund. So I don't know if there's any room for using bond money. So that's a discussion that, we're going to have, but I don't think there's room in the bond money because we've got that like pledged and obligated on other projects. So we're more than likely going to be using the water utility, in order to make this happen.
I guess that's my larger question. I appreciated the budget that was posted, but I mean,
Well, I understand the water utility is an unappropriated fund as opposed to the water district, which is budgeted. So
Okay.
that's a whole nother conversation we
Okay.
can have. But with respect to this project, the water utility is where the money would have to come from.
okay. We don't know whether we can afford to pay
Yeah.
for it.
Well, there's funds there for that. So, I mean, absolutely, we can pay for that. But it's a matter of, if that's where we're going to be utilizing the money from, that's where we're going to be utilizing the money from.
So, my opinion, this is a worthwhile project. This is the time to do the project, but I would need to have an understanding of the financials in order to feel comfortable approving.
Well, that's why I wanted you to kind of get your, heads wrapped around the numbers that are here before you tonight, so you guys can make an informed decision on that.
When would you need an answer on whether this is part of the project?
The sooner the better. As far as payment-wise, there's already going to be two funding sources on this. The First Group is doing the construction inspection on this. I know the water main is going to be some of the first work that is done on the project. Now that would be, as far as funding, there is the road portion that the town is covering locally. I don't know if that's crossing any lines financially, if the road portion were to start to cover some of the costs.
Understand that this project was part of a bond project for the road improvements, so
So that's exactly,
the 2.9, 2.8 is exactly
that.
what was budgeted for, and that's about what we've got.
So
So I don't think there's any extra money in that particular bond capital fund to pay the additional cost for that.
The timing of the work compared to the road work, because it's going to be two separate contracts?
no, it's the same contract.
So the FH Passion is doing the road work also?
Yes. They're the prime on the job, yes.
So as far as phase two, will there be already new surface down when phase two is constructed, or is that going to slow up
We are,
road problem? Yep.
we had anticipated them being constructed closer together. So in our current plans, we have a stopping point 300 foot south of the intersection at 93rd and Kyleman. So we have a nice little tie-in point where we're stopping the job. We had originally anticipated they were going to be constructed more closer together. Due to funding, we kind of had to push that out to 24 now. So there is going to be a brief period, likely from, I think the completion date for this contract was sometime late November, early December. So from that time to about July-ish next year, when we find out who the next, if we are awarded the funding, in July, we would have the new contract out for bid and have a new contractor there. There will be no work south of Phase 1 limits. So there's not going to be a resurface of Kyleman that we're going to be retaking out or anything like that. We're stopping the job cleanly and then going to be picking it back up. There'll be a little bit of incidental work, so maybe some curb tie-in, just as there's the 20-foot of the job that there's going to have to be some overlap of some incidental work done. But we did choose a nice clean point.
And then you would go out to rebid for Phase 2.
Yeah, so we should likely, if Robinson will be submitting a community crossings application in early January of next year. Normally, the community crossings applications are funded and awarded June, sometime in June, the award comes out. That's when we would know, does this project now have funding? And then we would then go out to bid. And then at that time, we would then be reapproaching you guys for the remaining $200,000 or so to finish the rest of the residents along Kyleman.
Do you have a handle, or does Robinson have a handle on current delivery times for water main or valves?
We were very ears to the ground on that one last year when we were having all these material problems. Since we are switching to C900 pipe, as the town is having a lot of ductile iron problems, the subs we've been talking to aren't having as big of an issue right now with that. The bigger thing is the ductile iron fittings that go in between each pipe, though we are not anticipating any issues with the contractor starting right off the bat with the water main.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I see the press on time here, because here we are, late February, right? And we have to decide whether we're going to authorize this work. Then the contractor has to submit submittals. Mm-hmm. Then those have to be reviewed and approved. Then the material has to be ordered. So we're talking like summer before the material comes. I mean, if we get on our horse here and the completion date is November, and this is critical path.
Yeah.
Likely the contractor may have the materials. Though I know they do plan on starting right away. I know Passion has been very interested in why they have not received the award yet, so we've been talking to them. And the underground work is being planned for first, right away. Now they just did use the word underground, so that could meet some of the storm sewers that we were doing on the project, but the water main would be right behind it. The project is set up so that the phasing, they can start on the water main right away.
Was there just like one or two storm sewers that needed to be?
So it's mostly since we're widening,
Yeah.
we're mostly adding inlets on and tying it. There's an existing storm system on the north side of the road. We're mostly adding inlets and tying into that existing system. So but again, that cost is associated to the road project.
Yeah. And luckily, the sanitary district doesn't have any expense on this one.
Yeah,
We lucked out.
we had been in talks about
Fell upstairs.
adding a relief
Thank
line
goodness.
within this project limits, but after speaking with Bob and his team more, they want to take that to Wall Street, north of Walgreens there, to kind of add in a gravity relief line. If we might have not made Robinson aware of that discussion yet, if Bob hasn't. But yeah, that was not on this project any longer, so there's no sanitary costs related to this.
So Joe, I guess what is the forum in which we can have discussion around monies and to fund this project?
Right, so what I would like to take a look at is our ending balances in terms of what we ended our cash balances in the utility, to see exactly how much money we do have. I do believe there was adequate funding in there to cover this project in particular. So we can have that discussion. I'll push that information out to you,
Okay.
so that way you have that as well.
has the money that we're anticipating getting from the county that's related to water, is that already?
That could be used for this
Could this be
project.
utilized for some of this?
The ARPA money could be used for that because they were for water-related projects. So I know he tried to specify using them for well 8 and 9, but unfortunately he couldn't do that, so it was just
He meaning?
the former Councilman Jorgensen.
Okay.
Yeah. So he just left it as a broad, for water use only. So if we could use that, obviously that's 400,000 and change that could be used for this project. But keep in mind, we also have Acorn, but I believe we're using some bond proceeds on that because we're kind of moving some projects around on that. So we'll have a funding mechanism, on this. It's just a matter of how we want to get it paid for.
What is the timing of the town awarding the contract?
We're waiting on a particular entity to give us their blessing, and once they do that, then we can move forward on awarding the project. But we just wanted to get we want to get it clarified with this particular entity in writing that this is how this thing's going to move forward. That's all.
So approval would not be at tomorrow's meeting?
No. In fact, I've got authorization to issue approval once we've got everything satisfied,
Oh.
but I'm not satisfied with everything quite yet on it. So.
And it does need to occur roughly by March 25th. There's 60, we opened on January 25th, and it needs to be awarded within 60 days.
Yeah, so we want to do it sooner rather than later, so we want to get things finalized, such as the budget numbers and stuff on this. So I will be talking to Beth Hernandez on how she feels, which way we could proceed in terms of, dollars, whether we use the utility or whether we use the ARPA funds pledged from Lake County, or a combination
Or a
of both.
combination thereof, right?
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Evan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You too, Scott.
Robinson Engineering.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Nagel with Robinson. We've got a quick PowerPoint to go through and to talk to you about the projects that are currently going on in town. So with this, we want to break it up into a sanitary sewer portion and a water main portion on it too. So looking at the PowerPoint here, turn this on. If you don't mind, I'd like to walk over there and then be able to point things to you too. Can you hear me on this?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to go over the sewer agenda first, and we're going to go over a couple of items on all these for everybody involved. I'm sorry if I'm standing in front of somebody here, but we're going to have the Schererville water billings or wastewater billings so you know where your money's going to. We're going to look at ways of reducing your wastewater billings by doing inflow and infiltration reductions. We're going to talk about Acorn Lift Station Drive abandonment and item requirements. Then last, we're going to go into cleaning and televising sewer, trying to develop like a long-term plan on this. On the water agenda, we're going to kind of follow the same thing. We're going to talk about where your Schererville water billings are going. We're going to talk about the water projects, and we're breaking up into water main jobs, water supply projects, and others. And a lot of these we even talked about tonight. We talked about the SCADA, for example, on it too. So with this is where Schererville water wastewater billings are going. This is for your wastewater treatment a year. And when you look at this, you notice one thing is that it is going up. So there is a trend here. And every year you spend, 1.9, 1.8, 1.7. In the future, it's going up. We don't know if it's going up because the population of the community has expanded or because there's I&I problem. We definitely know there's a little bit of an I&I problem here, but we got to take a look at it closer on it. So this is what you're budgeting, or this is what you're paying every single year. These are the actual bills. So looking at the flow data, this flow data here is from 2020. The blue lines in the very, very top is your rainfall data. And so what this shows is that we picked the 10 highest storms you had in 2020. And for example, this is the highest storm. You had a 2.55 inch rain. Over here, you had a 2.3 inch rain. And then below here, the brown line represents your wastewater flows, and the blue line represents your water flows. So this is a snapshot picture of everything that's going on in town. And one thing I want to point out to you is that you're seeing these large spikes when you're getting these types of rains. Here's a 1.74 inch rain, and you took in 8.42 million gallons of wastewater to Cherville, which you paid for it. When normally you're running in the range about 1.82 million gallons of flow on dry weather flows. So you see you have a peaking factor of about 400% on it. This is an example of what 2021 looks like, and pretty much the same thing. You see these large spikes. And what that tells us, it tells us that you have an inflow and infiltration problem. And what that means is that Cherville's got to treat your rainwater the same way it treats wastewater. It also means there's additional wear and tear on your pipes, and there's additional electrical expense for pumping it too. And then this last one we're coming up here is going to show you what's 2022. We had data up to November. But what's interesting to note is that your wastewater flows for the entire year is less than what your water flows are. So we want to come up with a way to how do we limit your I&I going into the system. And this was when we were asked to do this. And so we talked to Bob Davis, and Bob Davis came up with the conclusion that the worst areas in town are pretty much the older parts of town. And in here we have Lantern Woods, which is the purple area here, a little purple shaded. And it tells you how many manholes it has, length of sewer, and acreage is covering. Lancer Estates is located right there. 50 manholes, 1,200 lineal feet, 90 acres. The central zone is this area here. Jason, thank you for showing all that too. And Homestead Acres is down below. This used to be an old septic area that was converted into city sewers. So he asked Bob, where did all this come from? And what Bob showed us, he had this map from 1972, and you look at the outlines. These are the actual outlines that we had on the previous slide. Let's go this way. Is over what he came up with here. And it's like almost an exact match, too, on it. And so, when the gentleman from First Group talked about how old is the water main, we showed him the atlas tonight, the 1972 atlas. It showed where it encompasses the project limits that he was on. So these are where we're coming up with on it now. So we're going to look at, well, what's it going to cost to do some of the work? Now, this is where sticker shock is going to occur, I'm sure. So each one of the zones are in the columns going up and down. So we got west, east, central, and south. Over here are the pay items that we're looking at to do the investigation work. Smoke testing, manhole inspection, cleaning, televising, flow monitoring, mapping, and the total. So each segment there has a total on it. The total cost for doing the entire area that we think the worst I&I is coming from is about $1 million on it too. So you got to try to grasp on how we're going to go about doing it. If you want to break it up, we could break it up, go back, into segments. If you want to just do one or two zones, we could do a zone at a time. If you want to do all four of them, it's about $1 million. If you combine all four zones together in one project, we believe you can save about $100,000 from economy of scale on it.
Tom, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
That $1 million, that's finding the problem, but that's not fixing any problems, right?
Yes, sir. It's exactly it. We cannot tell you what your I&I problem is until we do the investigations.
So if you were to do it in phases or stages based on, the different subdivisions that you had identified there, or the areas identified there, and did that over, I don't know, however many years it's going to take to get through those areas. I mean, I know a phased-in process would probably be a little bit more financially palatable than taking a big bite and getting it all done.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
We were just asked for the worst areas and what kind of financial exposure is going to be associated with it. We cannot tell you how many manholes are damaged. We can't tell you how much lining has to be done. When we
Those are going to be the big ticket items, to be realistic. So this cost is minimal compared to what it's going to be costing to do some of these repairs.
And Tom, one of the things I think I'd want to look at is to do possibly a pilot program where we
Great.
take one area and do the smoke testing, the inspections and everything else, see what our I&I is, and then from there, because, mainlining itself does not have a lot of impact on I&I.
I agree.
And typically, it's coming from service lines and sump pumps that are connected to the sanitary system.
Clean outs.
So, it might be more beneficial to see if we did a pilot program. I'd hate to see us go through everything, every every section here, and that just finds out what's wrong, and then we have to address it. Where if we did a pilot program, a study to kind of work that out to see, is it the service lines that are causing us the problem, and those need to be relined? Or is it the main line? Or are we getting, somehow direct connections, interconnects between the storm and the sanitary? Before we go through all of them, try to phase it into some type of economical pilot program to see what's going to work the best.
John, I agree with you 100% in it. That's why we showed it in these different segments here, too. I mean, when we were given the map and we're saying these are the areas, we broke it up in those areas just so you can see all that. I agree with you. I don't think anybody should go in $1 million in this just to do the investigations, not have money to do the repairs on it. But if you look at this, half of the price is tied up in the televised and cleaning. And the televised and cleaning is going to give you the assessment of the inside of the pipe. It's not going to really reduce a lot of the I&I. The intent is that we could reduce the I&I with the savings from the I&I reduction. We could pay for some of the work that has to be done. And then the other thought is, if you don't do anything with this, it's just going to get worse. It is not going to stop where it's at right now. It's going to continually get worse. And if you looked at some of those sewers that that map showed, it was pre-1972. We're looking at 50 to 70-year-old sewers, probably all clay pipe. Also, one area, Homestead Acres, had septic fields before. So that's notorious for just letting people just tie anything they can to drain their backyards, any kind of low areas ponding. So, and that's what the smoke testing would tell us too.
Most of Homestead Acres went into a temporary filtration plant.
Mm-hmm.
Sits over there with the Shriners.
Right.
And that was required by the state at the time. Because my subdivision was on septic. When they proposed Homestead Acres, the state wouldn't allow them to give permits for all septics and that. So they had to build that plant. So most of it had sewers and it was going to be a temporary filtration plant.
Correct. We were told that by Bob Davis.
Sewers in, and they had to disband the plant and connect into the sanitary sewer district system. So, but the thing about it is, as you said, a lot of that was built at a time, and since then, with settlement and cracking and everything else, and you'll never get rid of infiltration, you know that. Okay, you have to seal everything, and you don't have enough money for that. But reduce it, and I'm sure that most of our problems are, Lantern Woods was 1969, was put in, Homestead Acres was started in the early 70s. If we were gonna do any kind of a program, I would go after the older ones first. And that's probably where you're gonna find a lot of the problems in those areas. So, but just wanted to point out the fact that don't let that many sort of in fact, because of the size of lots, most of Homestead Acres lots are not half acre. Which was required at the time if you were gonna have a septic system.
I agree with everything you're saying, Ken. And this is the information that Bob Davis gave us. He's got the history of the communities. He knows better than I ever would on where he thinks the worst areas are.
I'm on
And-
the planning commission at the time, part of Homestead Acres was put in, so that was the situation. They wanted smaller lots, the state wouldn't allow, the Board of Health would not allow that without filtration plant being built.
Okay.
So these initial 4 areas that were determined to look at, that's based on tribal knowledge that Bob has of just the community? Is that how those
I
areas
think you
were
said it
determined?
excellently. You said tribal knowledge. These gentlemen live and die for Public Works here. They worked all these years, so they know better than any other consultant walking in will be able to tell them.
Okay.
We could do a flow monitoring program on it, but that's going to be expense when we have the people who live it every day know it better than we do.
Tom, a couple questions. So the flow monitoring, is that pre and post?
No, it is not. It's pre-only.
Oh. Okay. So, well, that makes sense because you want to do the repair work and then do the post, right? So after you get done with one of these studies and one of these sections, then you would come up with a cost estimate for recommended repairs?
Yes, we will. And what we would do also, the best we can, we break down what's private property repairs and what's public property repairs. And that's where the smoke testing is going to tell us. Now we open a bigger can of worms. Now you have residents, they have prima facie evidence that their system is lacking, and they have to do a repair on their own dime on it. So, but at least you will know. And then the other thing too, like what Ken was leading to, these are all the same flavor and flair. So let's say what we could expect in one zone, we should be able to expect in the other three, but maybe not. But I don't know if the system is well, let's say as Ken knows, he's had all the years here, and Bob Davis knows it too.
Well, I like the approach that John's recommending.
The pilot, yeah.
Yeah, the pilot. But what I would want to do is you do the study, right? And then assuming that we've got the money, then you go in and you do the repairs, hopefully hit the low-hanging fruit, and then do post-flow monitoring and then see if it made enough of an impact to save us that money that we're paying to Cherville now to justify continuing the
forward.
program.
I love it. That's great.
I just gotta warn you, even if it comes back that you didn't make enough money, you gotta do something about it.
Right.
You gotta pick the lowest hanging fruit and do the biggest bang repairs you can to limit your I&I. So, as you know this, Jim, because I worked with Jim before, is that it doesn't pay for itself. It will never pay for itself, but it will extend the lifetime of the infrastructure you have in the ground, which is a major asset.
It's less wear and tear on pumps and lift stations and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is just something to be thinking about, and all we want to do is present some ideas to you, so what's going on and what we're thinking about too. So this big number we talked about already. The next project, this is kind of cool. You know, we're doing the Acorn water main job, and in the Acorn water main job, there is a lift station located right here. Okay, and in there we thought that we may be able to get this lift station underneath Bull Run Creek in the Elvina Lane or Elvina Rose to a sanitary sewer there. And the good news is we can. The bad news is, well, not such bad news, but the difficult news is it doesn't quite meet IDEM standards. And I can show you what I'm talking about here. Well, let's go back. So just so everybody knows who's watching this, that this is where the lift station bottom is. This is where the bottom of the creek is. And this is where the sanitary sewer on Elvina Rose is on it. So the problem we're having here is that IDEM requires that we have a minimum of 36 inches of clearance between the top of the pipe, the proposed pipe, and the bottom of the creek. They also have a requirement that 12-inch of cover is required if you're installed in rock. I spoke to IDEM today, and they said, this is reasonable. We could allow you to be at 1.5 feet-ish, 1.25 feet-ish, if you do some things like you put insulation over the top of the pipe. Use concrete backfill or a flowable fill, and use a ductile iron pipe or some kind of water main type PVC for it. So this is really positive, folks. This is great. So with that, what we could do with it now is we could eliminate this. And this is like one less SCADA point. Now, this goes back to the argument, do we want to have a 10-year contract carrying cellular service for this? You know, and then also, you're going to hear in this presentation, I'm recommending you pick up 3 or 4 more points that came up since the SCADA contract came on. So this could go away. All your electrical maintenance, everything associated with the lift station will go away. It'll all be gravity now. So that's very, very positive on it. We haven't worked up the cost estimate on that yet, but we are now. Okay. Okay, so one of the things, you look at this map here. This map is a 5-year capital improvement plan for roads in town. And what I want the boards to be thinking about is to start overlaying the improvement plans. And there's a sanitary improvement plan, there's a water improvement plan, there's a storm improvement plan, and there's a roadway improvement plan. And I want to ask you to please consider to start televising cleaning all these roads at least a year to 18 months in advance of them being surfaced. There's also things on this map here, just so everybody can see, the red lines are in 2023. The blue lines is what streets are going to be surfaced in 2024. The green lines in 2025, so forth and so on. We also have some other projects out here. NDOT's proposing a roundabout here on Klein. They're proposing a roundabout here on Parrish. And it has the dates associated with it. There will be sewer and water mains that have to be moved outside of the roundabout there. So we just want to start thinking about master planning projects. And also think about, we run this in layers, where we have the lowest layers, the sewer, then comes the water main, then comes the storm sewer, then comes the surfacing of the roads. Look at this as one whole town instead of each individual board. And I'm sure you are doing that, but getting it on paper to do it better. So like, for example, here on these roadway jobs, where you may have a a high maintenance water main you want to replace, and it could be on one of these lines here, we should get the water main out before we surface the road, obvious. So that's one thing I would recommend, that we look at doing a 5-year capital improvement plan for both of the boards. And that kind of wraps up the whole sanitary sewer process here. Any questions? And you can always come back and ask questions too, because the water main is going to be a little bit longer, but it's going to go over the same kind of theme, I can tell you that.
I would make the same point that I made before, like, these are all great things to do. How do we pay for them? So we need to handle on the financials, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that Danielle and I were talking about. Tom trying to get us the proper cost estimates on that, and how we're going to plug that into a 5-year capital plan, because that is something that we really need to focus on and stay disciplined on. So more to come on that.
Okay.
But identifying the problems and then, is step one.
I would imagine when we're done, you have a laundry list of things you cannot afford. You have to prioritize and see what you can't get done, and also have a justification behind it. Everything we talked about, you know why it's being done now. Well, abandoning a lift station is long-term savings on it, definitely. Removing I&I, there's long-term savings on it. You don't have to do either one of them. The system's going to operate the way it is now, but it will cost you more in the future. Okay, so we're jumping to water. So on the Schererville water billings,
Jump in the water.
St. John opens up a valve between the Schererville water system and St. John sometime around June 1st. Is that right, Bob? When it gets open, and it gets closed sometime around October 1st. And this is what you're seeing as far as yearly billing goes on for it, on that. So noticing this too, everything seems to be going in the upward trend, because everything's going up because the population's increased in the community, but it also could be because of more water use on it. So if you look at this, you can see here that if we go out to 5 more years, you're going to be up around $800,000. This $350,000 here, I think, is an anomaly. I think it should have been more like this coming up. And if you took that one out and did a trend line on it, you're going to be over $1 million within five years. The good news is,
I add something?
sure.
I was informed by the wonderful people in Public Works that maybe it has something to do with the altitude valve.
For reducing the water amount, water is consumed by people, and the altitude valve is going to help control where the water's coming from. The water could come from the Kilkenny tank as opposed to the Hack tank in that manner. I do not believe it is going to reduce the flows. It's the consumption by the people of the community, and it's better operating practice if you have altitude valves where they could control which direction the water is coming out of. And what I was told by Mr. Valois and the other men and women there is that it's a control issue where Hacks is taking the bigger burden because it's smaller. Now, I wasn't involved in it. I came in 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. So I don't.
You don't think the hydraulics would change with the altitude valve in the system?
As far as use, Bob, no, I don't. I think the use is going to be the use no matter what. I think it's going to be, you'll be able to operate better by keeping more water in your smaller tank and have more water coming out of the Kilkenny tank. And I think that's what one of your goals were.
The only thing that could possibly be is the Schererville standpipe that's over there.
Mm-hmm.
During, depending on the pressure they're pushing in the summertime, if their pressure is actually getting lower and St. John's pressure is getting higher, we could be reversing the flow and not really realize it. But now with those altitude valves, that would probably eliminate that, and I don't know when that altitude valves were installed or not. And then the other parts of town too, by having those altitude valves in there, you're able to push more water to a certain area, which may reduce what you were actually taking from Schererville.
Okay, so as far as the altitude valve goes, the jobs that we're talking about involves Kilkenny tank and Hack Street tank. There's not an altitude valve on the standpipe, the Schererville standpipe. Everything comes out of there is pumped through check valves to a dedicated line going straight to St. John.
So it can't reverse flow.
So I don't think the altitude valves is going to affect anything with the Schererville
So
standpipe.
those have check valves on the, in the meter vault?
They're not on the meter vault, on the downstream side of the pumps. So there's pumps that are dedicated to go to St. John. It leaves the pump, goes through a check valve, and goes right through a meter out to a pipe. Goes over the top of the hill where Michael's is, and it enters the town of St. John there. And help me out, Bob, if you got any other inside information. You know better than I do.
Check valves by pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because I'm just listening to the past meetings that it was more of that we didn't have a water capacity issue. It was more of a effectively being able to move the water capacity that we had available around the town efficiently, and the SCADA system and some of these other valves that we were putting in place were the things that were going to enable us to become less reliant on Cherville water.
If we do.
And so that
yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't necessarily a
if-
one-time anomaly of the
Yeah,
350.
if we do nothing right now, we're gonna be spending more on Cherville water. With well 8 and 9 coming on, and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder on this,
okay.
but, you know, if that's something you want to get into, but with wells 8 and 9 coming on, that eliminates all of this. So we won't need to buy water from Cherville. We just need to plan better for how we're going to move forward in the future. Tom, if you want to kind of
Yeah, let me go to the next slide.
Something's still not hanging together for me though, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Because we talked about SCADA. I thought SCADA was to, you know, some of that, that ability to systematically, you know, shut off valves and more effectively move our water capacity around the town was what was supposed to decrease some of our reliance on Cherville water. And now are we saying,
The reasons behind that SCADA and one, but you're not gonna see it in these numbers here, because this has only been in the last year that all this has been done, maybe 18 months. SCADA and.
SCADA started about a year ago,
Valves.
a little over a year.
Yeah, so it's been.
So they wanted to improve the water hydraulics, and we have a altitude valve at Hack Street, but they got to replace it. I don't think it works. But then they put an altitude valve in the Gates treatment plant, and that out of the tower, and that seemed to work. And that's why they think that number is because of SCADA. I've heard them talk about that too. So, but when Haas came out with, they wanted 3 altitude valves. I'm like, is this going to work? Let's do one at a time. They did the one in the Gates, and now the other 2 are ordered, and one is you can go vertical or you can go horizontal. Now the question is, the Kilkenny tank is, do we put a vault outside and with a crossover crossover that if the valve is out, you can still have water coming out of that tower. So they're in possession of the one. Now we got to make a determination, and Tom's going to bring that up about the Kilkenny tank. Where are we going to go with this? Are we going to put it outside and put a vault, or are we going to do it on the inside? We're going to plan to do it on the inside, but there's some questions with that with engineering.
May I?
And go ahead, Bob.
The reason we're thinking.
You
it
need,
went
Bob,
down-
get up to the mic if you would.
Yeah, the
Thanks.
reason we think this went down to 350, I mean, it's wishful thinking, and that's why we did the altitude valve. We did the altitude valve in the Gates, because before the altitude valve, you had to come in early, try and beat the problem, close the valve manually, and then reopen the valve when Hack Street would fill up. What we did with the altitude valve, it's based off pressure now, which is also monitored through the SCADA, and so that altitude valve will open and close due to the pressure that we're calling for. So we came to the Hack Street tower, which is right here. That's a 550,000 gallon tank. The other 2 are 1 million gallons. So obviously Hack Street's going to drain faster than the other 2 tanks. The reason we came up here is we squeezed that valve with the help of Matt Austin and checking valves in the system and really getting down into the system. We squeezed that valve closed more. So therefore, that water coming out of that tower is slower. So that one's holding water as the bigger ones are now dropping faster, which we believe hydraulically made a difference in that price right there. That's how we look at it. And you are correct about the altitude valves, and based off pressure. But, so we're excited to get the other 2 altitude valves installed, just to see if we are correct, you know, just to make sure. Because if we can justify which the hydraulics are coming from, because we can fill that Gates Tower like that. We can't fill Kilkenny Tower like that. The Gates Tower is actually really close, as you guys saw, to the Gates treatment plant. So you take that big well out there, eliminate filling up that tower 80%. Now you're pushing the water to the west, to the north, and all throughout town, which is changing your hydraulics. So we really truly believe that, yes, the altitude valve did make a difference. And from me doing this for 22 years, I can tell you it made a difference. I mean, I used to come out here bright and early every morning, 4 a.m., close that valve.
Right.
Stay till noon, 1 o'clock, okay, go back out there, open the valve. Same thing, every summer. So this is promising in our eyes. So, and I actually told Tom, we had a meeting about this, and I said, I'll steak dinner. That price does not go over $600,000 this year. And I hold them to that, because I really think it's going to make a difference. We might differ on that, but that's why everyone has opinions. So, thank you.
Bob, thank you
Thank
for
you.
waking up at 4 a.m. to build those valves.
For real.
So we're going to talk about the altitude valves towards the end of the presentation, but this is just where the consumption is going. This is where it's trending now. So just so you could get a feel, everything in yellow is your sanitary sewer costs. Everything in blue is your water costs on it. This is what you're paying Sherrville every single year on it. The blue, we could hopefully reduce by at least 90%, maybe even remove it by getting wells 8 and 9 operating. The yellow is the wild card. We don't know how much we could take off of the I&I to actually do the actual studies on it. So getting to some of the jobs we got going on right now, we have Acorn water main job, which is starting here. This was a water main area that was plagued with water main breaks. We're resurfacing the road because the road is in such poor shape. One thing I want to point out to you that there's this development or open land over here, and we're leaving stubs for them, so we're thinking ahead so that we get that part covered on it. Item permit should be right about the second week of March. We're going to get it, and we're about 5 days ahead of schedule on that, so we're really proud about that. So that's going to be going out to bid very, very soon. Come on. Okay, so
I'm sorry, before we move on to off of Acorn, so have we provided the update to residents that we've been talking about?
We're waiting on the permitting process to go through so we can announce that and he has talk about the town hall and all that.
Yeah, that's a great question you asked. So what we told the residents we do is we keep them informed on it. When we get the permit in place, the cost has been done, and it's going to be funded, then we would say we're going to go out to bid. Once we get a low bidder and a contractor there, we want to do a town hall meeting with the contractor and the residents within the neighborhood. And one of the public works officials knows someone's nice to give us their driveway. It'll be spring or summer. And then with that, we have them introduced to the contractor. They'll see the type of uniforms their employees are wearing. They'll see their name badges. They'll see their trucks that they're going to be using, and get some kind of schedule together for them too on it. Well, that's how we wanted to do that portion of it.
And I
Bottom
think
in the middle. There's a button underneath. There you go.
So, missed a schedule on this? Let's say it does get approved in the middle of March. We go out to bid in April-ish. Then we could have a contractor by middle of May. In the middle of May, we could then have a meeting with all the residents. What the residents should know is that it's going forward and we're ahead of schedule on it. We were targeting this for, say, a July, start building it then and being completed in the end of the fall. Now we're going to be able to complete it hopefully by the end of summer.
And they haven't had an issue out there since, the December time period? Has there been anything?
We
We don't talk about those things.
Yeah. Usually it involves a graduation or a wedding or something major in someone's house when this kind of stuff happens.
But no, to your answer.
Knock on wood, everybody.
Yes, knock on wood.
Yeah, this one we're proud of. This one we got it done in a hurry, got a permit in a hurry. And I think you're gonna like the way it turns out with the PR portion of it too. It's very, very important,
Did we eliminate all the dead ends now? The only one would be the one going to the west property towards.
Yeah,
White Oak.
that's a great question, Ken. Let me go on back here, and I could just explain what Ken was talking about. Oops, go this way. So currently, right now, we got a water main, a rear yard water main running through this lot here. When this development goes, we'll be abandoning that, and there will not be any dead ends on there. This water main here goes down and ties in here to Elvina Rose on it. And then another point too, is there's a water main running through this lot line here. We'll be able to take that water main off too. And there's a sanitary sewer force main running there with Acorn lift station, that will come out. So in reality, you'll lose this side yard easement and 2 side yard easements here. Everything meshed together on this. This is what I was talking about, various plans. You have a sanitary plan, a water plan, a storm plan, and a roadway plan. Looking at all together at once. Any questions on Acorn? Okay, so going along with some water main jobs still. We have the 18-inch raw water mains. When I say raw water mains coming out of the wells before it gets to the Gates treatment plant. And so with that, we got wells 8 and 9. On there, we need about 600 feet to service wells 8 and 9. We need about 2,000 feet to service well 9. The looks of this thing should be ready to be completed sometimes in 2024. And we're going to be using wells 8 and 9 pumping into the Gates treatment plant until a regional plant is built, which will be somewhere around 2026, 2026. There's a 12-inch water main on Route 41. It's about where Elsop Nursery starts and goes all the way down to about 106th place. That thing should be completed in about 2024 too.
Yeah.
It currently had water main breaks on it.
And that 12-inch water main project is part of the bond money, just so you know, as far as the financing for that. The financing for wells 8 and 9 in terms of the regional treatment plant, we'd be looking for financing through the IFA as a possible funding source for that. But that's something that we're really going to have to take a look at soon.
Right, and to build on that, so we had conversations with the Indiana Finance Authority, that's the IFA Joe was talking about. Currently, they're offering loans at 2.6%. We think it's a great vehicle to fund a public works job. You could take a 30-year loan if it involves pipe. If it's a treatment plant, you can only get a 20-year loan for it. But it's a good vehicle. We also talked to IDEM about all the projects we got going on, and they're excited about being on the ground floor of all this too. So we talked to IDEM Sewer and IDEM Water and the IFA and everything that's going on now.
Tom, how does that loan work? Does that loan start out with a low interest rate, and does it balloon at the end? So you
No,
have
sir, it's fixed.
It's fixed.
It's fixed at about 50% the bond buyer's market. That's what it's fixed at.
Because they have some that'll balloon at the end.
These will not.
Okay.
These are straight fixed. And then we could make a case to try to get a 30-year loan on a treatment plant, because the treatment plant should last 75 years. They came right out and said, anything involves sewer pipe or water main, you get a 30-year loan on, because there definitely is, a track record of a 75-year life of it.
And they install that 2,000 feet for, to get 8 and 9 in that transition line. You're saying that won't be done until 2024?
We could do it sooner, Wayne, but if we're not going to mean anything till we get the well houses built. And the well houses for 8 and 9 will be built in 2024.
And
When we did well 6, we didn't have a well house. We had a shed, 6 by 6 or whatever. We had the chlorine in there, and we functioned that way. Why can't we do that and get that pipe in? Because now, next month or at the end of this month, I think they're going to do a core sample on the tanks to find out how good the media is in both those tanks in the treatment plant. So if that shows that we have to change it, we can put the new media in there, the green sand or whatever they were using. I think we should get that going, because now you'll have 8 and 9. If you can get 8 and 9 going with that, there's not going to be any chlorine out there. You can send that into the Gates treatment plant. That's going to allow us to get, 3,000 gallons a minute?
2,000.
2,000, okay.
Each well's
Thank you for
equivalent
correcting
to
me, because
1,000.
I didn't know, but I think that would be great. I mean, we've been trying to get that. We had the permit set up, and then Haas was all set up. I think they have it engineered to go into the treatment plant. So to do that 600 feet is pretty easy. We have the pipe sitting on the ground at Public Works. I was told you can get the other pipe relatively soon. I would like to see that progress. At least we have that, because we're going to have that anyhow. If you put the regional plant down to the north, that's going to take a while.
Yeah, and to Wayne's point, if we have one of the wells go out at anywhere, forget what we're pumping at Cherville. We're gonna lose it. I mean, you know, we're not gonna have enough water. So having that as an emergency backup, if nothing else, adding additional capacity is a bonus.
Right, okay, so just so we're all clear, we're talking about building a well house, we're in a residential area, and sheds are not gonna be allowed. We were just on this mindset that we're gonna match the feel of the community, you've got a home living next to you. So that's what we're doing. We're doing an architectural drawing of a building to show where the well house is gonna be, and we're installing the water main to it, on it. There hasn't got a permit done on it yet, we gotta get a permit for both the water main and the building. The well is permitted and drilled. It was drilled in 2018, I think it was. And then one was drilled in 2020. Is that about right, Bob? Yeah.
I
But-
don't think he means a shed permanently.
No, it's a temporary thing to get it going, because then they built that whole building. But it was that was supposed to be the mother lode of the wells, and it worked out good until it got messed up, the shaft or whatever. We still get, 600 gallons, 800 gallons a minute out of there?
Out of,
6.
no,
It's less?
1,100.
1,100, okay. So that's not bad. But I think that's important to get that going, because if we do need something in the summertime, and we got that, the new media, that could help us a lot, and we would stay away from Cherville's water.
Or a well goes down,
Right.
God forbid.
We're on the same page, folks. We want to get it going too, but there's this mechanism of a design, and there's got a mechanism of getting a permit, and then going to bid on it. I mean, even
But
if
we do have a permit to do some of that, because I think we lose that permit in March. So we can get an extension on that, from what I was told, and we could probably get that accomplished.
The only thing I know you may have a permit on is going to be this small section of water main, which is the 600
The
feet.
600 feet, that's
Right.
for sure.
That's the only thing I know. But that doesn't help you unless you get the 2,000 feet in and you get your well house built at 8 and 9.
Well, that little building worked when they got 6 in, and I think it could still work. My opinion, it's just a temporary thing, but,
We'll look at it for you. I never heard about the little building option, to be
oh
honest.
yeah, it was a little bit, it's bigger than that podium, but it was, right, Bob?
It was tiny, and I think we were at a big need of water more than we are now, and that's what they made work.
Well, let's look at a Plan B. I mean, this could be the fallback plan, you know, whatever the tiny building is. But we'll take a look at it for you, okay? I didn't know about that until now, so. Okay, any more questions on this before we move on? Okay. So the hydraulic model, one of the questions was that Jim Zarnick brought up, it's like, do we need a larger water main? This is a model of the entire community. We'll be able to see what is going to be needed for future as far as where the bottlenecks are, where the high maintenance mains are, where the high friction loss mains are on this. We'll be done with this in about 2023 on this one too. It'll be May, so we're ahead of schedule on that.
Oh, incidentally, did you get the information you were expecting from the one developer?
One developer, who's the one developer?
The one we met with about getting the,
No, I did not.
I was gonna say SCADA, I got SCADA on the brain. The,
Yes, the property.
yeah,
I know, I did not. So.
okay.
So this is kind of exciting too. So Wayne brought up about changing the media out. Over at the Monix Water Treatment Plant and over at the Gates Water Treatment Plant, we designed filters there to be loaded at 4 gallons per square foot. And we're doing a pilot study right now if we could change the media out to address the sulfur content that's coming in the water right now and to increase the loading on it. And so we had done this at well number 8 and the results came back great. And well number 7, we were told the results are about the same as 8, but we don't have that confirmed. And well 9 isn't going to be worked on until the ground freezes or it dries up, according to the property owner. So on this, what we're finding out is that we could do, I'm sorry, did I double pump that? No, I addressed okay, so item requirements is 4 gallons per square foot. We could load these right now at 6 gallons per square foot. We're finding out by doing a media change out. You literally save millions of dollars by not building a treatment plant instead of changing out the media on it. And that's going to be done somewhere in the summer of 2024 there. It's going to be done in the summer of 2023. I apologize for that.
We're gonna do that in the summer?
Now, this is what we're going to find out from IDEM, whether they're going to approve it or not.
Like, we ain't doing no work
Right.
in the summer. No.
And one of the problems is we can't get out and do the final well until the ground is either dried up or frozen. I'm not foreseeing frozen coming, at least frozen enough coming where they can drive trucks over it.
Couple
So-
questions, Tom.
Yeah.
So I don't understand, like, do we own the property where the well is located? We do, right?
Yes, you do.
So, but we can't access it because there's a different property owner between the town's
Yes.
property and the well?
Absolutely. That is
What
exactly
it
what it
is,
is.
Jim, they got it excavated for the road. They didn't stabilize the road. So it's, if the land is like this and it's cut down, that's where the road's gonna go, but will mess up all of his work. So
Oh, I didn't understand that.
we can get out there, and he doesn't care, but he doesn't want, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of excavating messed up. Now, they have
Can't go wrong.
it's hard, and they got the pump for well 9 there. They got it in there in the cold weather, but now they need about a week, 10 days, 2 weeks to do the testing. They got to bring a generator out. That's heavy, but not as heavy as the truck, the crane that put that pump out. So one of them trucks is 80,000 pounds, so weather like this, you're gonna get stuck. And you can go with the matting like they have for all the different things that they're doing with the utility lines.
Yeah.
That's expensive. 3-4 days, when I checked it out, was like $8,000. So they're not gonna,
Doesn't
it's,
sound so bad to me.
well, yeah, but you'd have to see. But he doesn't want that all messed up. I don't blame him.
Well, we're talking about needing water, so. And then my other question is, the media is removing the iron, not the hydrogen sulfide, right?
There's a new media out there. It's called, it's a Green Plus. So what it is?
Catalytic, there's a catalyst media, Oxy 12, I believe it's called.
Right. And this is what the test is showing us too, Jim. So in order to load it greater than the 10 state standards of 4 gallons per square foot, we got to prove to IDEM that with the water we have and the media we want to use, it can load it greater on it. And we're going to increase the capacity of the filters by 50% each.
Which is how many thousands of gallons? That might be better.
It would be 1.4 million gallons of filter. At 1.4 million gallons a day of filter. What
Yeah,
is-
I get that. I mean, the operators were telling me that hydrogen sulfide's not getting removed by the media, right? So you're loading them higher for the iron removal, but to remove the hydrogen sulfide, you need to aerate it. And aerating is not an option in the neighborhood. That's what
Right.
I was told.
Right.
So the media will eliminate hydrogen sulfide. That's what the pilot study's showing right now. It is eliminating the hydrogen sulfide.
Okay, well, that's good, because it's rotting out all the piping and the valves, right?
It's turning stuff black, yeah.
Okay.
And aeration, where the location is not an option. That's not an option. But the media is working and it will work, so that's the way to go.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what the pilot test is showing us too on it so far. We just got to get completed in the last well. Okay. So that's the well houses. We just kind of dabbled on this a little bit. Each well was drilled, and 8, 9 are producing 1,000 gallons a minute. The well houses are being designed right now. The raw water would be pumped to the Gates treatment plant.
Question, on the well house design, were those already previously done by Haas?
There is a plan on it, yes.
There was never a final design, though.
Not that I could tell, for
I
sure.
just wanted to get that clarified.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to be taking the water from wells 8 and 9. We're going to pump it over to the Gates water treatment plant, and that should be ready and operational in 2024, unless we go with something less elaborate as a well house that we're doing right now. The regional water treatment plant, there's also an issue with the property there. The town is working on finding property. There's other options, and that's going to be looking like 25 or 26 before it's going to be completed. Okay.
Is the design moving forward for the regional plant?
Yes, we're designing a 6 gallons per square foot, Jim. So we're going to take what we did over at the Gates plant and we did at Monix plant, and we're going to duplicate it. We just got to find a piece of property. We got a footprint and an envelope of the building needed, and we got to get a property for it. There was a developer, it didn't work out the way the town thought it was going to work out, so.
And a question about the treatment plant. I know we discussed possibly doing an addition onto the Gates treatment plant, and I know we kind of, put that off in terms of, because of putting all of our eggs in one basket. That's not
Correct.
a good idea. So do we have a cost or an idea of what that would cost to do the expansion over there? Or did we look at that at all? Do we know? Yeah.
No, it was
I know
discussed.
that's not something that we're wanting to do either, so, but.
It was discussed about putting all of our filtration in one spot, or we would put over 60% of our filtration in one spot. If something ever happens to that building, electrical, fire, whatever it could be, we lost 60% of our filtration capacity, which means we lost 50% of our wells. We cannot run our wells directly into the system before it goes into the filtration plant. So. And I think it's reasonable too, and I think it's the best way to go. I know people say, well, nothing could happen, we'll never get a lightning strike, we'll never get a fire. Boy, I tell you what, as soon as those words are said, it seems like it just pops out of the woodwork on you, so.
We definitely don't want to lose 60% of our capacity.
Right. So we talked about SCADA too. So, I mean, this is a little rundown on what was done with the SCADA, things that are missing, which isn't major, but it's just part of closing out a contract. You got to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that they provided everything on it too. If you look at the last bullet there, it says items that should be added to their SCADA contract. So here I am layering pricing on your SCADA project right now. I think you should get the Kilkenny altitude valve, the Hack Street altitude valve, and just recently Sherrville, in conjunction with St. John, installed the water meter where we could pick up their flows that's dedicated just to St. John. It doesn't commingle with Sherrville's water. So those are 3 key points I think we should be picking up on it. And that's currently not included in the contract because it wasn't there when the contract was given to Austin a year ago or whatever Wayne said it was.
Is the Gates altitude valve skated right now? Okay.
Okay.
The altitude valves were after the SCADA contract.
Right.
Way after the SCADA contract.
That's why I was talking about having Matt come here and just kind of, here's what happened incidental too, yeah.
I don't understand the Sherrville master water meter. I mean, our flows are currently metered, right? So how is this different?
You're getting data from them. This way you could pick it up and you can see what's going on with it. It's just a remote transmitting unit going there, picking up the flow.
You just want an RTU there.
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought
I mean,
you
the
meant
meter
install the
currently
meter.
there. So
I'm good.
I think it's good to know. And the reason I think it's good, not saying that anybody's monkeying with the numbers and the readings, it's just good to see what day you're taking so much water. And when I did that assessment of your monthly bills and your daily bills, everything's written there. But now you got a chance to do a double check on it. And it's SCADA too. So adding another RTU somewhere is not going to cost a lot.
And just so you know, the share of a water vault would involve a new modem. So that would be more money coming off of that Verizon contract. And the 2 altitude valves would not cost anything from Verizon because those would just tie into the existing SCADA system at those locations.
And then the new lift station that we're going to have, we're going to lose, so it's going to be a net zero.
It seems like it's a moving target, and it is a moving target, so. Okay, Hack Street altitude valves and Kilkenny altitude valves, we talked about this. It's going to help the operation of the system. It can't be taken out of service over the summer months or even near the spring months. We don't want to take any risk with that. The worst gets to call occur sometime in fall and winter of 2023. So that's coming up too. And then lastly, what I want to just talk about again is that we really should be looking at high maintenance water mains and get them tied down where they are at and view if they're going to be occurring. Any of these streets are going to be proposed to be surfaced in the next 5 years, and then get some kind of water main replacement plan for those. Last thing we want to do is improve a road, then come back and dig up a water main break on it. And this goes back into layering we talked about, where you take the lowest, the medium, the highest. I mean, put all these plans on a single layer and look at it as a town of St. John plan, not as a sewer district plan, not as a storm sewer district plan, not as a water district plan. And that's about it. Any questions?
Good job, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks,
I just
everybody.
have one follow-up question. So with, you know, it seems like there's items that we're adding capacity to the system, right? So, and then there's going to be, you know, so that's gonna give us capacity, and then there's gonna be development that we have planned that's going to sort of, you know, eat away this capacity with consumption. Do we have a plan that sort of shows what, you know, that looks like as far as, you know, water capacity versus water usage, and what does that look like on a glide path for 5 years out or 10 years out?
No, there is not a plan like the way you're talking about. But that's one of the hydraulic models is gonna be able to do, so that we could plug in subdivisions in undeveloped areas and replicate what that water need is going to be. Then we can see what our max day is gonna be, what our capacity is gonna be as far as well source is gonna be, and treatment plant source is going to be.
And that should help us understand like what our requirements, what additional capacity we're gonna have to be able to bring on over
Right.
time.
And it would
Okay.
also, by having this hydraulic model, give you a tool to start hitting the developers for the pro rata share of the well cost and treatment plant cost. I mean, right now, you really can't come say, you owe us 20% of this, because we don't know what they owe them 20%.
And then we'd also have to put some kind of legislative action in order to make those demands or requirements on that. So that's something that, you know, we'll have to be having a conversation about at some point when we do start putting that modeling together to determine what their cost portion would be, and then making sure that we can, you know, assess those amounts to the developer. Because right now, there's no legislative mechanism to do that, but we'd have to institute something like that.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
No motions on the study session. You don't vote on anything.
I'll just make,
Well, it says adjournment on here.
I'll make one comment. I think it's gonna be important in the future, once we get somewhat of a capital improvement program moving forward. It's gonna involve both, wastewater and water. And once again, if you're redoing a road, it needs to be looked at to see what the current sewer system is like underneath that road, what the water system is like, and if there's any future improvements that we need to do, so we don't end up putting a road surface down, reconstructing a road, and then 4 years down the road, we're tearing it back up. So I think we may end up having to have more of these meetings, a joint meeting, to talk about budgets and how we're gonna afford this, because, you know, and one is whoever the accounting firm that's gonna maybe do a rate study, they're gonna need to have this information to know what those rates, does our current rate able to fund this? Do we need to increase rates? Do we, you know, all that needs to be looked at in a comprehensive program, and not just one board going this direction, another board going that direction, because overall, it won't work. So
Yeah, I
think-
mean, I don't think we can be in silos and
Right.
focus on only our lane
Correct.
because of the fact we'll be, yeah, I totally agree.
I have one more comment, if you don't mind. The other day, I was looking into the cost for the SCADA and what the costs really are. It's $7,200 a year, roughly, give or take a few bucks, for the SCADA costs for the cellular. So when we're looking at abandoning lift stations and issues like that, so if you want to abandon a lift station, there's a lift station down the hill. I think we pay $20 a month on that for cellular costs. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of what you really are spending on a yearly basis. So I just want to let you.
And you said that was how much again, just?
$7,200, I think, a year is cellular cost on the lift stations and the treatment plants in the towers.
So how much would it cost to run fiber to all of those?
That's $7,200 a year.
That's what I wanted
About
to
5 million.
know. Yeah,
About $3 million, I think.
yeah, so, I just wanted to quantify that because these guys are sitting here.
Okay, anything else? Speak now or forever hold your